Hey guys, what's going on in Scats? It's been a long time, but today I'm here to talk to you guys about the upcoming changes to classes here, the initial preview for Shadowlands, which is the next expansion for World of Warcraft. Now last time around, whenever we were going into BFA Alpha and Beta, I made quite a few videos discussing the class changes and everything that went along with them. So this time here, I'm only going to be focusing on the DPS side of things for the moment. The tanks and healer side of things, I'm honestly not too familiar with because the bulk of this expansion, Battle for Azeroth, I've basically just been playing DPS. So we're going to just go ahead and skip those for now. We're only going to look at the DPS side of things. So first of all, if you guys are looking for these class changes, or if you somehow haven't seen the link yet, there will be a link in the description here, but this is just the Wowhead article. They do a really good job of summarizing what the changes are, what's baseline, what's not, what's coming to the class, what isn't going to be carried over, at least initially, because this is super alpha. This is like the alpha hasn't even gone live yet, as far as I know. Still waiting on invites and that to go out so we can see it. So we'll just have to sit back and wait. So let's just jump right in here. So this is the Shadowlands class changes in summary. We're going to look at Death Knight here. And there's a whole bunch of stuff. Their general philosophy is they're going to go ahead and unprune a ton of abilities for every class and spec. Give everybody a little bit more leeway with what their talents actually do. And this is what people have been asking for, well, quite a while. So looking here at Death Knight, all Death Knight specs are receiving the following abilities: Death and Decay, Anti-Magic Zone, Lichborn, Raise Dead, and Chains of Ice. Now those, of course, are abilities that we had back in Wrath of the Lich King, and were just kind of things that you could get. At that point, you had to spec into them because the talent trees were very different in the case of Lichborn. But for the most part, these are super iconic abilities that, for whatever reason, were just pulled out of the specs because they wanted you to hyper focus on one thing. These are really cool. It gives you Death and Decay, which is a great ability in general. It's free AoE. Anti-Magic Zone, which is an actual group CD. Lichborn, which was really fun. I believe that's the one that prevents you from getting feared and charmed. Raise Dead would be a pet, so we'll be able to have a pet, I guess, as both, as all three specs, which is really cool. I can't imagine a tank with a pet, but I'm excited for that. And then, of course, you got Chains of Ice, which is their snare. Snares are incredible in every aspect of the game. Now, there's a new one here, Sacrificial Pact. It sacrifices one of your minions, siphoning their health and causing them to explode and deal damage to nearby enemies. So I'm guessing this is probably going to be one of the things that they're balancing around with the blood side of things. But for DPS, this is awesome, because if you're able to blow up one of your minions, because notice it says one of their undead minions. That doesn't necessarily mean your ghoul pet, your standard raised dead pet. Maybe there's other things you can get where you get extra pets, who knows. But having a free heal and a way to deal damage is awesome. So I would kind of expect it to be kind of like a minor DPS CD. So just real quickly looking at blood here, Rune Tap's baseline, that's awesome. It felt mandatory a lot of the times when I was playing my Death Knight. And they have some other changes there, which of course we're going to skip because we're not talking about tanks today. Frost. You can play one-handed or two-handed Frost again. Praise Elune. Oh my god. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Two-handed Frost will be back. Hopefully it'll be comparable to one-handed. Hopefully the scaling will be good. Frostworm's Fury, which I believe Frostworm's Fury is that awesome, not Breath of Syndragosa, but the big ice dragon that flies through and just destroys everything. I'm pretty sure that's what Frostworm's Fury is. I'm sure someone in the comments will tell me I'm an idiot for not knowing what it is. Hyperthermic Presence is a talent. This is new. Hypothermic Presence halves the runic power cost of abilities for a moderate amount of time. Now, you'll notice there's no specifics here, and that is probably because, being completely honest, this is all, pen and paper. This is like the wish list, sort of. This is what they're going to. There hasn't been any tuning yet, and numbers won't really matter right now anyway. So that's pretty cool. Getting yourself, something where you can spam a little harder is pretty sweet. I'm sure that would pair up very well with Breath of Syndragosa and Frost. For Unholy, Summon Gargoyle is now baseline. I believe this was baseline, way back when. It's great to see it back as a baseline, because having to choose between this and a talent that just did way more damage and wasn't a CD, one that just sped up the gameplay, just seems kind of weird. So, glad to see that's back to being a baseline thing. Army of the Damned talent. Army of the Damned returns an even stronger force with a familiar and faithful recruit, a Magus of the Dead, so they're bringing that over from BFA, which is awesome. They will fight beside your Maldraxxus Bannermen, and their presence rallies the Unholy Death Knight's ghoulish armies, lobbing Frostbolt and Shadowbolt spells into the enemy. So that's pretty sweet. So the talent's going to go and give you a Magus of the Dead. That's sweet. That's awesome. That's kind of the go-to right now in terms of, the Azerite traits right now. It's cool to see they're bringing that over, because that is really neat to have that. Army of the Dead, reduced by Death Coil and Epidemic Cast, which is actually one of their talents right now in the bottom row. I don't know if it's for Epidemic, but I know at least for Death Coil it reduces the CD. That's really cool, that's really awesome. That'll speed it up and keep it from feeling slow. Now, Apocalypse, that cooldown is reduced by Death Coil and Epidemic Casts. Oh, and it also summons you a Magus. Sweet! Well, they're really bringing the Magus over. I like it. That's pretty awesome. So their Mastery now increases their shadow damage and the damage of minions. That's very important there. Shadow damage and damage of minions. So that's going to make it that your pets are very important. Tie that in, of course, with Sacrificial Pact. It sounds like you're going to have a lot of fun with Unholy. Definitely going to be checking that one out quite a bit. Should I end up with a beta and alpha invite. Alright, so Death Knight is done. Let's head down to Demon Hunter real quick here. Immolation Aura is now baseline across. You no longer have to talent it. Great change. And they just changed the resource for Vengeance over to Fury. I guess they just didn't want to call it Pain and Fury. They said, let's just make it all Fury, which is fine. Whatever. That saves them a word somewhere. It's also easier to, tweak things that way. So Havoc gets, there's a new thing here, Unending Hatred. It expands their Fury's maximum capacity. I'm guessing that is just a baseline passive because it doesn't say talent next to it. And then Essence Break, which is a talent. Essence Break deals chaos damage and significantly increases the damage of both Chaos Strike and Blade Dance that they would deal for a short duration. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that probably replaces where Immolation Aura is on the talent tree. But of course, talent trees are going to change probably dramatically between now and release, so nothing too crazy there. One change for Vengeance that I do want to look at here is Fell Devastation is now baseline. That's really cool. I love Fell Devastation. I believe that's the one where they get that big old fire breath thing that heals them like crazy. That's really cool. You haven't been able to take it all expansions as a Demon Hunter, so glad to see they're making that a little better. Okay, taking a look at Druids. So Druids are getting a bunch of abilities back here. Your baseline abilities that you're going to get back are Ferocious Bite, Bark Skin, Cyclone, Stampeding Roar, and Iron Fur. Now those are all, super basic abilities that, why they disappeared I have no idea. Bark Skin not being baseline for some of them is just strange. I don't know if that's actually what they mean there, because I'm pretty sure that actually everybody already has Bark Skin baseline. I'll have to go and check my live Druid. Cyclone coming back is really cool, especially in terms of PvP, even though I don't PvP much. I know Cyclone's like the default pick for a lot of people, and Cyclone's really fun, especially in dungeons. You can kind of use it as an interrupt. And Stampeding Roar, of course, just brings even more utility for the utility class that is Druid. Now, Heart of the Wild is a new talent. Well, not a new talent, but it's a talent that's coming back. Provides an options for Druids who want to use off-roll abilities during combat. That's going to change all over the place, I'm sure. I believe before it went and it enhanced, your... I'll put it this way. I played a Druid in Classic. Heart of the Wild in Classic gave you, a bunch of extra stats that you normally wouldn't be able to get on your gear for the spec you were playing. And then increased, your spell power, so your AP and your spell power was pretty close. So, pretty cool stuff in general. So Balance is getting Solar and Lunar Empowerment changes. They're going to be strengthened and updated into Eclipses. For those of you that played back whenever you had Eclipses, I believe it was back in either Pandaria or Draenor, I can't remember which one it was. Wrath and Starfire will grant each other alternating lunar and solar eclipses for a longer duration, with special moments of celestial alignment allowing both to occur at once, which is really sweet. the way that balance plays right now is really just spammy. Like, Star Search is like the only thing you want to do, and then you're just kind of dropping your empowerments whenever you get the opportunity to. This change to going to the Solar and Lunar empowerments is definitely going to do away with the playstyle we have right now, where you have to have triple streaking stars to do anything, and using the same ability twice in a row is crazy and wrong. I honestly like spamming Wrath. I think it's cool, so it'd be neat to be able to do that occasionally again. Star Surge extends the current Eclipse to continue focusing power into either Wrath or Starfire. So Star Surge is going to extend those, give you a little bit more time in that window where the one is stronger than the other. Wrath or Starfire, the Eclipses and all that. If you haven't seen that before, there's a lot of fun you can have with that. Whether or not Star Surge is going to be, continue to be the ability that you just, spam and it's your highest damage, we'll have to see. They might end up changing Balance's Mastery a little bit. Because if they don't, it might be a little awkward. I'm not too sure. Starfall goes back to that passive design people have been asking for. So instead of dropping it on a targeted area, you just pop it and it kills stuff. And it pulls stuff. I hope. I hope it causes all sorts of problems, because I loved it whenever it did. And it's funny here, it says, Balance Druids, again, call down waves of stars which strike the surrounding ground while they stand, run, or flap for its duration. Now that, of course, is going to be absolutely awesome. That's going to be great. Like, I'm really excited for that. Feral, they're changing Blood Talons, which is something I hope they tune correctly, because Blood Talons right now is super skill cappy. Without being really good at managing your Blood Talons, you don't do anywhere near as much damage as someone who is performing it correctly with Feral. Whenever they use Shred, Rake, or Ferocious Bite in quick succession, the damage of their next rip will increase dramatically. So I would assume it's like, if you go Shred, Rake, and then your Ferocious Bite in like probably like an 8 to 10 second window, then your next rip gets huge. Probably shorter, maybe like 5 or 6, but, either way, giving you a reason to use Ferocious Bite to make your rip stronger is really cool. Gonna quick touch on Guardian here, even though I said I probably wouldn't touch tanks. I want to mention Berserk here. They're bringing Berserk back for Guardian, which reduces the cooldowns of Mangle, Thrash, Growl, and Frenzied Regen substantially, while also having the cost of Iron Per. That's a huge change for Guardian Druids, and that's really, really awesome for them too, because they've been having threat issues and a lot of other things going on in the current expansion as well as back in Legion. So hopefully this will go ahead and really help them out so that DPS can do much higher burst, because that Druid's going to be able to do some crazy damage too. Resto here, bunch of changes for those. We'll go over those later on, because I do not want to touch on Restoration at the moment. Alright, moving down here to Hunter. All Hunters are receiving the following abilities baseline. Arcane Shot, Eyes of the Beast, which is a blast from the past right there. Hunter's Mark, Kill Shot, which is huge. Scare Beast, which is pretty neat. And Trank Shot. Trank Shot is incredibly awesome. I'm very glad to see that. And of course, the most important change of anything in the alpha notes, the stable size will have a significant increase. That's huge because if you are playing a Hunter right now, you have a very limited number of spots and literally hundreds of different pets you could have. And it's just not fun to have to go and choose between, keeping Fluffy the dinosaur or, I don't know, Godzilla the mechanical squirrel or something. So, it really sucks whenever you can't keep all your guys. So that's going to be really cool, and I'm very glad to see that. So for Beast Mastery here, Beast Mastery Hunters teach their companions to tear into their target with a talent called Bloodshed. The unfortunate quarry will bleed significantly, causing them to take more damage from the pet. So that there, I'm guessing, is going to be like a minor CD sort of. There we go, and you pop that, your pet's going to do even more damage. Pair that up with Bestial Wrath. Sounds like it's going to be a pretty good bit of burst. That's pretty awesome. The Son of Blood Talent's been reworked. It now activates whenever Bestial Wrath is used, gaining 2 charges of Barb Shot to bloody a target and empower their bonded beast to strike down threats quickly. So that's, get them more damage and more haste, which is great. Those frenzy stacks are super important. So the Venomous Bite talent has been reworked. It's been moved to Spitting Cobra's place in the talent tree, which is in the bottom right. And what this Venomous Bite talent does is whenever Bestial Wrath ends, a Cobra will come to aid the Hunter in combat. The Serpent's power is based on the number of Cobra shots used during Bestial Wrath. Now that's very interesting, because that's going to scale, exponentially with haste. The more shots you can get in there, the stronger this Cobra is going to be. That sounds like a very, very powerful single target talent, which is definitely something that Beast Mastery has needed for a while. That's really cool. I'm very excited to see what that does. Now, Marksmanship has a couple of changes here that are pretty neat. You've got Deadeye, which is a talent, lets the Hunter store 2 charges of Kill Shot. It also makes Aim Shot recharge faster for a short time whenever Kill Shot is used. So that's just going to speed up your execute phase and let you do even more damage. Binding Shackles is a passive talent. It causes enemies rooted by your baseline Binding Shot. So, of course, Binding Shot is baseline there, which is pretty sweet. To deal less damage to the Hunter for a short time after being released from the root. And that's pretty cool. That's going to be something very useful for M+ for sure. New talent, Volley. Looks like they're either changing this or something. I know Volley is one that's in there now, but it's pretty mediocre. But this enables the Marksman Hunter to rain arrows down on a targeted area for a short time. It also gives the Hunter the Trick Shots buff, causing your Aim Shot and Rapid Fire abilities to ricochet and hit up to 5 additional enemies for half the damage for the entire duration of the volley. Now that's a little scary because that makes me think that Trick Shots isn't baseline anymore. And if that is the case, that's very scary and has some really huge implications for what Marksman actually does. So keep an eye on that talent in specific, because that could absolutely make or break Marksmanship right there. Having to choose a talent like Volley is a little scary. So hopefully it's just that you just have the buff the whole time while Volley's going. So you don't have to use multi-shots to trigger it. I'm hoping that's what that means. Survival here, damage increases to Hydra's Bite, Butchery, Steel Trap, Tip of the Spear, and Viking Strike. Don't know if they're going to make those actually relevant or not. We'll have to see. And Chakrams have a reduced cost and focus. Nothing too exciting there. I don't think we're going to see many changes to Survival until later in the cycles, because Survival is a spec that I don't think Blizzard really knows what to do with right now. It's a very interesting spec, but it's also not that great. Super odd to have a melee spec in a traditionally ranged section. So for mages here, a couple things that are changing. Baseline abilities, all mages now get Arcane Explosion, Fire Blast, Frost Bolt, Mirror Image, Fire Ward, and Frost Ward. So that's 6 new buttons for every spec, which is pretty huge. That's a lot of different things there that's going to be interesting to say the least. Alter Time has been reworked. When cast, it gives the mage the ability to return to their initial location with the same health and mana after casting it a second time, or after a short time. I believe before it was like a 6-second window, and as long as you weren't dead, you'd go back and you'd be full health if you were full health beforehand. Super useful for PvP. PvE in general with that talent was very tricky, and rewarded good play. So I'm okay with this coming back as long as it doesn't feel like, if you don't use it, you will never be able to compare even remotely to somebody else. So hopefully the skill gap isn't so massive that that's like a detriment to most players. Focus Magic is a talent. We had Focus Magic back in, I think it's Cataclysm we had that. Might have been Pandaria. Focus Magic grants an ally a slight boost to their spell crit chance. In addition, when that ally crits the spell, the mage receives the same boon for a short period of time. So basically, you toss that on somebody, then you get crit yourself. They crit, you crit, they crit, you crit. It's awesome. It's great. Can't go wrong with that. So with Arcane, clear casting has an extra stack that's super useful. Ending up over cap on that by no fault of your own was super annoying. Mastery Savant now extends its damage increasing properties beyond Blast and Barrage, and it's now all spells. So your Mastery is just a straight damage increase. That's awesome. That'll help with tuning and make Arcane feel a little bit better. It's also going to make Arcane Explosion hit like a Mack truck with high levels of Mastery, which is pretty cool. Touch of the Magi is now baseline. For those of you who don't know what Touch of the Magi does, anytime you go and you're hitting a single target with that talent right now, it'll build up damage on the target as Arcane, and what that'll do is after a short period of time, it'll go and explode into AoE. Super awesome. Glad to see its baseline because it's been basically the mandatory and required thing, period, for Arcane Mage for basically anything. You really can't take anything but that talent, so it's great to see us getting some options. There's something new here called Enlightened. While the Arcane Mage's mana is above a certain threshold, it empowers all arcane damage dealt by a moderate amount. When below that threshold, it significantly increases mana regen. Huh. You know, that sounds very suspiciously like Equipoise, which is probably the best Azerite trait for Arcane Mage. That's pretty awesome. You know, that is something that definitely should be folded into the class. And there you go. It's right there. That's great. I'm very happy to see that. So Fire is getting some pretty major changes here. The Mastery Ignite has been reworked a little bit, and this is where it gets complicated. Fire Blast now serves as a catalyst. When used against an enemy who is ignited, it spreads to up to 8 enemies close to your target. So no longer does it go to everything whenever it spreads. It spreads when you tell it to, and then only to up to 8 targets. Now, granted, there's not many times where you're going to see, 20 or 30 targets or something crazy like that. But this is a very significant number, and something that, for lack of, a better reaction to it, is going to be very interesting to see. Because this is going to very fundamentally change the way you play Fire. Blast Wave now does more damage and has an increased slow duration. That's really good because Blast Wave was basically impossible to run for the most part outside of PvP. It will be cool since it does more damage. It might actually be competitive on that row. Kindling combustion cooldown reduction has been increased. That is absolutely great. I'm glad to see that. I love Kindling right now, and I'm glad to see that getting an increase in reduction. And then, of course, Pyroclasm, which is the other talent in the bottom row there, next to Meteor, which has been the unrivaled king this whole expansion, basically. Pyroclasm damage bonus to Pyroblast has been increased. Hopefully that's closer to what the bracers were in Legion, which was like 375 or something ridiculous percent damage. But we'll have to see. The best part about the Pyroclasm thing is that I would like to see it done, and hopefully we won't have to be constantly moving, so we can actually make use of the talent, because it's really cool. It's really, really cool. And having a super long cast time is just really annoying. So Frost also has a pretty big fundamental change here. Flurry's Winter's Chill effect is now a much longer debuff that causes Frost Mage's next 2 spells to treat the target as if they were frozen. And that debuff apparently increases the critical hit chance from the Frost Mage and their allies against the target. So what that means is that whenever that Frost Mage goes and gets that Winter's Chill up, your group's doing more damage too. That's really cool. That's super synergetic. It's going to make mages definitely a much stronger pick, especially on single target, because if you think about it, if every spell hits something at the same time and there's one stack of Winter's Chill up or something, if there's, it says the next 2 spells, so if everything hits it in the same second, pretty sure they're all going to get that increased crit chance. That's pretty sweet. That's going to be super useful for sure. Alright, moving on to Monk. Monks have got big changes all over the place. There's a bunch here. So we're just going to go ahead and just focus on the baseline and then down there at the bottom, Windwalker. So baseline abilities here, Expel Harm, Fort Brew, Spinning Crane Kick, and Touch of Death are now all baseline. That's right, you get Touch of Death as a tank. That's pretty wicked. There is a new thing here, it says Celestial. All 3 specs will also be able to summon their Celestial to the battlefield with Invoke Swen, the White Tiger, Nizo, the Black Ox, and Yu'lon, the Jade Serpent. These were all previously talents. They're now baseline. That is awesome. Being able to bring out the White Tiger as Windwalker is awesome. Having the extra damage from Nizo, the Black Ox's tank is great. And the Jade Serpent from Mistweaver, that was just a really cool CD that no one's been able to use. So I'm glad to see they're making them baseline. That's definitely going to add a lot more fun to the mix. One thing to touch on here for Brewmaster, they can now choose between one-handed and two-handed weapons again. That is awesome. I'm so glad to see that. I'm very excited to see how that plays out. Dual-wield tanking might be a thing again, which is pretty cool. On the flip side of that, Windwalkers can now also choose between one-handed and two-handed weapons again. That's awesome. That's great. That's so awesome. I'm so glad to see that. I can finally play a two-handed monk and 2 damage. Sweet. Invokes when White Tiger is now baseline. Touch of Death now instantly kills any creature with less health than the Windwalker monk, and will spawn chi spears that the Windwalker can consume to perform devastating blows. I'm assuming that just means it's going to crank your chi up to max, probably. Pretty sweet. Can't go wrong with Touch of Death. There is a new passive talent, Dance of Chi-Ji. Has a moderate chance to make your next spinning crane kick free to use and deal a significant amount of extra damage to everything it hits. That's pretty neat. Dance of Chi-Ji, I believe, is also the Azurite trait we have right now, which is pretty much the best thing for Monk and Mythic Plus. Pretty cool to see they're making it a passive talent. Hopefully it's tuned correctly with the other things in that row to make it competitive. So skipping the rest in there in Monk. Down to Paladin here. Bunch of changes for Paladin as well. Baseline abilities here. Blessing of Sacrifice is now for everybody. I guess it's Ret that gets it back. Hammer of Wrath is baseline for everybody. Sense Undead. Shield of the Righteous, which is pretty interesting. It's going to be great for Holy too, I guess. Turn Evil, which is a fear for undead and demons, I believe. And then Word of Glory. Word of Glory being baseline is amazing. I'm so glad to see that. It's going to help Ret really cement itself as a mainstay in Mythic Plus groups when it has that significant off-healing potential. Holy Power is back to all specs, so you're going to have Crusader Strike and Hammer of Wrath, giving you additional, well, it's going to be generating you Holy Power. Then it says Spender examples, Word of Glory, and Shield of the Righteous. Now that's intriguing, because Shield of the Righteous right now, as prot, is, literally your active mitigation. So if you have to go and build a resource to have your active mitigation, that could get interesting. So hopefully it's not, a mandatory you have to use 3 charges as prot. That could get really dangerous. Auras are coming back. Concentration, Crusader, and Devotion auras return to all Paladins. That's awesome. I'm very thrilled to see Crusader aura. That makes me very happy. As well as Concentration aura. Concentration aura was fun. Looking here at Retribution aura, they've reworked it a bit. Allows Paladins to avenge fallen allies with a short burst of avenging wrath. So Ret aura will give you that current Retribution passive, apparently, which will give you a reason to play Ret Paladin. And Retribution aura, of course, as long as they're not changing what it does baseline, maybe it still does the Thorns damage, I don't know. Divine Purpose talent, that's now available to all specs. That's interesting and really cool, because that means that prot will get the ability to refund what it's spending on its Shield of the Righteous, which again I said can get really dicey. What's really cool here is Holy Avenger talent's now available to all specs, which generates a huge burst of Holy Power in a short window. Anyone who's playing Paladin right now knows Holy Avenger's nuts. Being able to run that with everything is pretty sweet. I'm very glad to see that. Looks like they're moving Seraphim to a talent for all specs as well. You spend Holy Power to increase your secondary stats for a moderate amount of time. That's really, really cool. I'm excited to see what incredible Holy Paladins can do with this, because Seraphim in general has always been very strong, and it's just going to be even better. So Holy, Glimmer of Light is now a level 50 talent row, level 100 row pre-squish, because remember that level squish is coming in. Glimmer of Light being a level 50 talent row is interesting. Now remember, right now every Holy Paladin is stacking 3 of those, so that's definitely going to decrease its effectiveness being a talent, which is something that I think people who are freaking out about this change in particular, it's going to be less powerful than before. And real quick with Aura Mastery here, it affects all the auras, which is really cool. And of course, Holy's the only one that has Aura Mastery, so sorry, Ret Palis, you don't get that. Retribution here. Wake of Ashes is now baseline. Oh, praise the light. Praise the light! Wake of Ashes being baseline is awesome. Super excited to see that. That opens up a lot more room in the talent tree for talents that actually compete with it. Maybe we'll get to see some people running Consecrate for a change. That'd be cool. Empyrean Power is now a talent, which of course Crusader Strike has a chance to make your next Divine Storm cost no Holy Power, and deal more damage. Pretty cool they're going to keep this around. This has really made Ret Paladins actually viable, so it's good to see that they're keeping it. Alright, moving on to Priest. All priests get the following abilities. Baseline, Mind Blast, Mind Soothe. I believe Mind Soothe is the D in Rage, I think. Power Infusion, which is really, really notable. Power Infusion being baseline, sweet. Shadow Word Death and Shadow Word Pain. Power Infusion is now reworked. It can be cast on all allies. It can now be cast on allies, so it's not just for you, it's on allies. Pretty cool you can use it for yourself. Really sweet that you can use Power Infusion like a buff like it is in Classic, and say, buff your most powerful ranged DPS. Your Boomkin in your Classic raid will thank you if you Power Infusion it. Your Balanced Druid in Retail here, whenever Shadowlands comes out, will just bow down to how great that buff is for them. Very excited to see that Power Infusion getting back into the mix. So a bunch of changes here, of course. For Discipline and Holy, we're not talking about those today, so we're going to skip down here to Shadow. Death and Madness is a talent. Each time a target dies after being slain with Shadow Word Death, the Shadow Priest gains a substantial amount of insanity over a few seconds. In addition, Shadow Word Death resets, instantly ready to use on their next victim. I love the phrasing there. I love whenever they do stuff like that. Death and Madness is pretty sweet. Getting extra insanity is going to keep them in their their ascension and that for longer, which is great. Can't go wrong with that. I know some people don't like that playstyle where you're in that CD and you have to keep playing and getting stacks and moving up. But I think that's pretty much here to stay. I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. Surrender to Madness has been reworked, merging the current Dark Ascension and Surrender to Madness. The Shadow Priest instantly gains a huge spike of insanity and casts Void Eruption on the target. Over a long duration, insanity-generating abilities grant 100% more insanity, and you can cast your spells while moving. However, if the caster fails to slay their target during their buff window, they die. Horribly. No one is surprised to see that with Surrender to Madness. It was one of those things where, you pop it during your execute phase during Hero on that crazy boss that needed just super crazy high-risk damage, and there you go. It's there, and it sounds like it's going to be super strong. Can't complain. Taking a peek at Rogue here. All Rogue specs get the following: Instant Poison, Crippling Poison, and Numbing Poison. That's right! Outlaw gets poisons! Just what it needed. Excellent. Yes! Excited to see that. Shiv now allows a concentrated version of a poison to infect the target for a short duration, assuming that's just for a little bit of burst here and there. And Pickpocket will now frequently uncover new ingredients that can be mixed into their Crimson Vial, augmenting its power the next time the rogue drinks it. That's interesting. I am very interested to see what that does. Hopefully I'll be able to play a little bit of Rogue on the Alpha and Beta. Assassination here. Shiv's bonus effect provides a moment of increased nature damage to the victim, mirroring the gameplay of Toxic Blade. So it looks like they're merging Toxic Blade into Shiv, and then there's actually a talent called Toxic Blade, which just reduces Shiv's cooldown. So it looks like Shiv is going to be one of your big CDs, so to speak, for Assassination now. I'm okay with that. It's cool to have it baseline, so you have that all the time. Poison. Stronger poisons apply to the blades faster, and always inflict the targets when attacking from stealth. So you get stronger poisons, and they always go from stealth. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Ambush. Initial attack from stealth. What? I mean, that's what it's always been, right? Okay. Blindside talent now has a chance to access ambush while out of stealth, with a higher chance on lower health targets. So that's going to be really cool. That's going to let you ambush out of stealth. Just be able to hit them with an ambush. Cool. And then, of course, Toxic Blade went over there. That reduces Shiv's CD. Now, it looks like Outlaw's getting a bunch of changes, which is good. It needs some changes. It's been getting pretty stale. Roll the Bones. Removed combo point requirement for a modifiable cooldown, which can be manipulated to line up with their staggering finishing moves. I have no idea what that means. And I don't think anybody does, really. That's interesting. I don't know what it does. We'll have to see it to figure it out. Relentless Blades, Frantic Combat, will reduce the cooldown of Roll the Bones by spending combo points. So, it looks like they're not going to have us spam Roll the Bones to find the one we want. Hopefully they're going to buff all of those. I hope. Kidney Shot returns to Outlaw's Toolkit. Glad to see that. Between the Eyes. Between the Eyes making their foes more susceptible to their critical strikes instead of stunning them. So Between the Eyes is now your, actual damaging ability, which apparently makes them take more crit damage or makes them, increase crit against that target. Pretty cool. Glad to see that. Swapping the stun out of that is really, really good because the amount of times a rogue has stunned something in Sanguine while I'm tanking on my Paladin is just absolutely infuriating. So, that's a good change. Evasion comes back to Outlaw's defensive ability, which is great. Riposte has returned to being a talent, and it's now an upgraded talent option. So I'm assuming that Riposte is now much, much stronger than it is now. Maybe it lasts longer, maybe it counter-strikes or something, who knows. But pretty cool. Tossing Evasion back in is probably better anyway, because rogues really just want to, dodge and avoid taking damage. Retractable Hook is a talent. It was still there, it's been around for a while. It now also increases the speed of the rogue's grappling hook. I guess you get there quicker. Cool. Can't go wrong with that. So for subtlety here, Find Weakness. Attacking from stealth and other abilities allow the rogue to bypass their target's armor, but also causes shadow damage when they are struck by an eviscerate. Now that's interesting. That's extra damage added on. I think that's the change. Pretty cool. Shadow Vault is a new AoE finisher, which also assaults targets with their Find Weakness for additional shadow damage. Now that's super important there. That's going to make Subtlety actually be able to do AoE without relying on, funneling damage all into one target, which is what it had to do all of Battle for Azeroth. Till they nerfed it on, what's his name? Zool, I think. Yeah, not fun. But that's pretty cool. Hopefully that'll bring Subtlety out of the shadows. Haha, puns! Alright, Dark Shadow, now passively part of Shadowlands, but increases its cooldown. So, interesting. Not sure what that actually means. And they've added Rupture back as a bleeding finishing move. If that still returns energy, that's going to be super good for Subtlety, and we'll have to see how that goes as well. Alright, on to Shaman. So, Shaman get a shit ton of more buttons. Oh god. My Shaman has so many buttons already, and they're adding even more. So, new baseline abilities. Chain Lightning, Chain Heal, Healing Stream Totem, Flame Tongue Weapon, Flame Shock, Frost Shock, Lightning Shield, and Searing Totem. All Shaman get that. Holy shit, Batman. Shaman are going to need an extra keyboard. Elemental, they've removed Maelstrom as a resource, making Elemental a cooldown management focus spec rather than a builder spender. So Earthshock will build stacks of Fulmination to determine when to insert Earthshock into the rotation. That's pretty cool. I remember that being a thing way back when, and I enjoyed it. Earthquake is enabled by Chain Lightning and stacks of Seismic Thunder. So does that mean Earthquake is no... Oh, okay. So Earthquake doesn't cost Maelstrom anymore, because there's no Maelstrom. Instead, it's a proc you get by choosing Chain Lightning and getting stacks of a buff. Cool. That's alright. That sounds good. Hopefully they can balance it out, right? Echoing Shock is a talent. It's been redesigned. Blast a target for significant damage and makes the next healing or damage-dealing spell cast a second time shortly afterward for free. That's pretty cool. Not sure exactly what that does, because it's pretty vague. But, sounds like it's going to be fun. Getting an extra Earth Shock is pretty awesome. For enhancement here, Maelstrom resource is gone, making enhancement a cooldown management focused spec. I'm sensing a trend. With high points built around repeat casts of Storm Strike. Chain casting certain abilities will allow them to unleash a devastatingly powerful cooldown. So Maelstrom Weapon attacks have a chance to grant a stacking buff, which makes spells instant cast, Elemental Blast is a talent for enhancement. That's interesting. Grants a powerful ranged attack option, which benefits from Maelstrom weapons' reduced cast time. That's pretty sweet. Hailstorm, which is a talent, has been redesigned. Using Storm Strike resets the cooldown of Flame and Frost Shock. That's pretty neat. Searing Assault has been reimagined. A powerful fire attack strikes the foe for significant fire damage, while causing Searing Totem and Flame Shock to deal their damage much faster. That's pretty interesting. I guess that means it'll let you focus your your Searing Totem on a specific target instead of it just hitting whatever it wants. So that's great. Overcharge talent has been redesigned. It grants 5 stacks of Maelstrom weapon instantly, and another stack every second for a short duration. Pretty cool CD, I like the sound of that. Stormkeeper, okay, has been redesigned. Makes the next 2 Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning Bolt casts instant with bonus damage. It now benefits from Maelstrom weapon, lowering Stormkeeper's cast time in order to chain powerful abilities. Ooh, Enhancements gonna get really flashy and really interesting. Definitely putting that on my short list of specs to look at in beta. That's gonna be cool. We'll just note real quick on Resto, Earth Shield's now baseline, about time, and then they get a talent that expends a few charges of Earth Shield to significantly heal the target and several nearby allies. That's gonna help huge in Mythic Plus to make Shaman a little bit more viable. Alright, on to Warlock here. All lock specs are receiving the following abilities. Baseline here, they're going to get Curse of Doom, Curse of Tongues, Curse of Recklessness, Curse of Weakness, and Demonic Circle. Demonic Circle is super welcome. Tongues is going to be really awesome for PvP and actually in a lot of dungeons, I'm sure. Recklessness is interesting, so is Weakness, but most importantly, Curse of Doom being baseline is pretty sick. Let's see how that goes. There's a new talent called Tongue Tied. Empowers spells cast on a target with Curse of Tongues, causing them to seal the victim from receiving healing effects. Does that mean they just can't heal? That's interesting. Forcing them to succumb to all incoming damage for a moderate amount of time. That sounds incredibly powerful, and also incredibly broken. We'll have to see how that goes. Unstable Affliction no longer stacks on the target. It now lasts longer and no longer consumes a soul shard. So it looks like Unstable Affliction is becoming, it's going back to being a standard dot and not essentially your primary, dump, which is great. Malefic Rapture. It deals damage to all enemies afflicted by their periodic spells and it's increased for each periodic effect on the target. Now, that sounds really cool. That just means you're going to multi-dot and then Rapture. And the more dots you have up, the more damage you're going to deal to everything. That sounds awesome. That's great. That's what Affliction needed for AoE. I like the sound of that. So the Seeds talent now embeds 2 additional seeds. I'm assuming that means it's going to shoot 4 seeds? Hopefully? If not, they just repeated what it already did. So I'm going to assume it does 4. That's really substantial and pretty awesome. Demonology here, Dark Pact talent now scales with spell power to deal more damage than ever before. I don't know exactly what Dark Pact means there. I'm scared. Dark Fury talent, it also increases the area of effect, which is good, because having a bigger Shadow Fury is great. Lastly here for Destruction, Fire and Brimstone now generates 2 Soul Shard fragments for each additional enemy struck by the Warlock's Incinerate. That's super important because Fire and Brimstone has been super underpowered the entirety of BFA. Glad to see this here. Hopefully they'll be doing some more for Destruction so it doesn't just lose out on the glory it has right now with the shortened cooldown on Infernals from the neck piece and all that. So we'll have to see where they go. Alright, and finally we are at the Warrior. Alright, so Warriors, better get your expanded keyboards out, get your Nostromo out, all that good stuff, add another pin pad on there. You're going to need extra buttons, man. New baseline abilities, Challenging Shout, Execute, Hamstring, Ignore Pain, Intervene, Shield Block, Shield Slam, Slam, Spell Reflection, and Whirlwind. All baseline. Prot with Whirlwind. Hello! Sounds awesome. Shattering Throw now also deals devastating damage against foes protected by an absorption shield. That's pretty sweet. That sounds really cool. New baseline talents, Double Time and War Machine. Now I'm assuming it says new baseline talents. Does that mean that they're legitimately just that's all the time you have those, or that they're just in the first row? So I'm pretty sure they already are in the first row, I think. Well, let's just hope these are just wrapped into, being just, you have them all the time. Arms. Piercing Howl can now be used to slow enemies. How convenient. Cleave has been redesigned. After striking 3 targets with Whirlwind, Cleave will strike all enemies in front to inflict the Deep Wounds Mastery Bleed. Interesting. Okay. Deadly Calm talent's been redesigned. Completely removes the rage cost of the next 4 abilities and passively increases maximum rage by a moderate amount. That's very interesting there. Giving you that kind of stuff is going to be sweet. Dreadnought has been redesigned. It now takes on the Seismic Wave Azerite trait, dealing damages to enemy in a line in front of you. When hitting 2 targets with sweeping strikes, you will create 2 Seismic Waves. That's really important right there. That's pretty sweet. Looking at Fury real quick here, Fervor of Battle. Whirlwind also casts Slam on the primary target and generates additional rage. Onslaught, brutally attack an enemy while enraged, for a large amount of damage and generate some rage. Pretty sweet. Wrecking Ball grants a moderate chance for the next Whirlwind to deal a devastating amount of damage. That's a really, really, really awesome proc. Cannot go wrong with that. Fresh Meat has been redesigned. It now causes Bloodthirst to always grant Enrage the first time Bloodthirst strikes a target. So essentially, it gives you a reason to swap targets in melee, to make sure you can keep your Enrage up. That's pretty cool in AoE. Frothing Berserker has been changed as well. Upon reaching 100 rage, gain Haste, I'm assuming it means haste, and movement speed for a few seconds. Getting extra haste is always good. Now, with that that is absolutely all of the initial changes they're going to. For more information on Shadowlands, you can check the official WoW posts that are going to be on the World of Warcraft main page. Wowhead has information. Icy Veins has it, I'm sure. There's all kinds of places over there. The our WoW subreddit. All those places should be amazing resources for you. So with that, guys, thank you for checking in today. I'm hoping to do some deep dives here as soon as Alpha and Beta really start to get going. Because this is what I love to do. I love to test. I love to look at stuff and go, okay, how does this go in? And I said I love puzzles. So we'll see if we can figure out the puzzle of what the best class for Shadowlands is going to be super early in the alpha, so we can be completely wrong by the end of it. Alright guys, you have a great day now. Bye-bye.